you haven't watched my previous video on basic deck building questions, go check it out. But if you have, and that wasn't enough for you, then here's another important mindset to have when building your Hearthstone decks. The tip for this video is to know specific timings in your deck where your tempo gaining cards are strongest. This applies for both building your own deck and playing against others. Those of you who have played RTS games will recognize the idea of timings. But for those of you that don't know, a timing attack is a specific point in the game where your strategy has built up towards aggression. For example, a standard priest deck is very powerful at turn 3 because of Dark Cultist and Valen's Chosen. Two cards that when compared to every other class is the strongest for gaining tempo at turn 3. Unless your opponent has a very specific card in their hand, there's a good possibility that you will gain a tremendous amount of tempo at this point in the game. Another timing is at turn 6 with the Cobalt Shadow Priest and a whole slew of tempo gaining legendaries. This is why it is so important to identify what kind of deck your opponent is using as early as possible so that you can identify the turns where they are strongest and prepare accordingly. The trouble with looking for decks on the internet and copying them is that you assume the deck is good instead of looking at why it's good. Try to figure out where each deck is strongest and exploit that advantage. This usually will depend greatly on the hero class selected. The reason why Zoo is so powerful is because it fundamentally exploits its advantage of having huge numbers of low mana cards, ensuring that it will have many options to play in the early game. If you're using a deck that is designed for the late game, then a Zoo deck may straight up overwhelm you before you can even get your most powerful cards out. This is where knowing the meta, the tendencies of the general player base, comes into play. If you're facing a lot of Zoo decks, you may need to restructure your deck so that you have more board clear cards early on, and then gradually shift back to your original deck as you climb the ladder and find Zoo in less frequency. By familiarizing yourself with many timing points in other decks, you'll start to play differently now equipped with the mana turns where your opponent's class is both strongest and weakest. As Hearthstone gains more and more cards, this concept will become more important. But at the same time, these specific timings may also change as they did with the Priest through Naxxramas and the GVG expansion, where both the Dark Cultist and Valen's Chosen came from. My name is Nick, and thanks for watching. If you have an idea for a video, let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't learned about the many timings for each class in Hearthstone, start now.